Welcome to my broadcast channel. I do these broadcasts for StopSpraying.org, which is an effort to get the government to cease spraying toxic insecticides and chemicals. They use viruses and diseases, mainly things like Ebola and Zika, as a mask. Okay, but let me address briefly the political situation of the United States today. Take no sides, my friends. Do not take sides. That would be the worst thing that you could possibly do. Is to align yourself with either a Democratic movement or a Republican movement. The strings that are being pulled want you to do exactly that, and that has been happening now for a few decades, and primarily since the assassination of JFK. Take no sides. Now, in California, where my family first arrived, I broadcast from Florida, but my family first arrived where I was born in 1890. I was born in the 70s, California. My lineage from there had arrived on this continent in 1640. So, and I lived in Mexico for a couple years. I love that country. What is happening now in California is the residents there want their flag to stand for the republic for which it once stood. So if you look back in the history of Mexico, and I decided to marry a Mexican woman. We were married for a few years. You will know your general history that the states like Texas, Arizona, California, they seceded from what was the Mexican Union. Okay, and the question you need to ask yourself is why? Why did these states leave Mexico? Okay, because they petitioned the United States at the time to support them in leaving Santa Ana's Mexico. Santa Ana's controlled Mexico. Okay, why did they petition, and why were they successful at getting that support in leaving the Mexican Union, and then eventually being absorbed into what we now know as the United States of America? Okay, I'm going to link it. I'm going to show you a link. And when I was down probably 6 years ago in Mexico City, and I had the opportunity to tour the congressional chamber there at the main square where the federal buildings sit in Mexico City. Walking into that chamber, of course photographs were not permitted, but you walk into that chamber and you see the same image on the ceiling of that chamber. I will show you this image in a moment. If you watch my past video, I showed you that same image there. This is a really big issue, folks, and it's time to unite and stop staying divided and understand your history and understand what's happening in the world, because it's in your face in plain sight. It's just people aren't understanding what's happening. Okay, so I think I've said enough about that, but finally know that California is wanting, or Californians are wanting to secede from the United States for the same reason that Californians originally, that were part of New Spain and then for a couple years of Mexico, wanted to secede and were successful. Okay. However, there was a larger body that they were able to absorb themselves into, and we know that today as the United States of America. That doesn't exist now. There's a much larger problem going on now. Now just imagine, California secedes, where do they turn? Hawaii? Okay, so we've got major issues. But this is the same symbol that is painted on the ceiling of the federal building in Mexico, and you find it, if you reach into your pocket, right there on a dollar bill. It's the pyramid. That pyramid right there is what I'm talking about. Okay? The Masons controlled Mexico. They still do. Okay? Now, I'm not saying you need to conspire to overthrow the Masonry movement, because there's different lodges within Masonry. There's different religions within Christianity. There's different religions within religion. Okay, this is not a simple problem, but you can at least identify the problem with this. Okay? And what you'll notice there is something called a Federal Reserve note. This isn't money, it's a note. It's a note of debt. To whom? To the Federal Reserve. Okay? So whoever helped fight Mexican independence, and I haven't looked into that, but my assumption is, and I can almost guarantee you, they have a direct link and tie into the same people that helped the Americans fight their independence against Britain. Okay? These are monarchical families of Europe of old, tied into the Roman Empire, that control. And if you think that's far-fetched just because the United States has been independent for 250 years, you're highly wrong. How do you know you're wrong? And how do we know that we're wrong? Because we're in debt. We're in trillions of dollars of debt. So who do we owe our debt to? Okay? Because we're not in debt to ourselves. This has been the most successful country on the planet ever. We have the largest and most powerful military ever, but there's someone else who controls that military. We don't control that military. Our creditors control our military. So who are our creditors? It's right here, the Federal Reserve. The people that control the Federal Reserve control our country. They control our government, and they control our Constitution. Okay? So, two things to remember, and then I'll show you one other thing, and then I'll close it out. But May 1st, 1776 versus July 4th, 1776, two organizations were established. The latter organization, that if you're in the United States right now, you're part of that organization. And the initial organization, if you're basically anywhere in the EU and England, regardless of pretext, you're part of that organization. Okay? The first organization is Adam Weishaupt. The second organization is George Washington. Okay? Both members of this movement, however, they were conflicting schools. The problem is the initial school eventually corrupted that second school, July 4th, 1776. Okay? And it's now that initial school that is controlling and bonding that second school. And we must escape that if we truly want our freedom, and division is not the way to do it. Understanding what is happening is the way to do it, and uniting is the way to do it. The party system has long been corrupt. Regardless of your party, it's corrupt, I believe. Okay, unless you're completely independent and you vote on people based upon their policies. You don't identify with their policy party making in that regards. Okay. Now, you can tie that right into Mexico, the Federal Reserve. Again, understand who paid for the Mexican Revolution. Understand who paid for the American Revolution. Understand who paid for the French Revolution. It's all tied into the same people, the same organization. Okay, it's a very serious matter. It's very, very serious. And you need to understand that there's the U.S. government and there's the bank controls that U.S. government. And the only way out of this is to abolish the bank that controls that U.S. government. Okay? Don't let people spray toxic chemicals over your head. I'm going to end it at that. Talk about that in another broadcast. But go to stopspraying.org, feed it, support it, pass this video on, get people to understand what is going on. Abolish the Federal Reserve. Have a great day.